people might think that you're engaging in hyperbole when you say that the lawyers wrote themselves into our Constitution, but that's exactly what they did. If you read Vic Fisher's book about the Constitution, of course, Vic was one of the delegates, he talks about when they created the Judicial Council in their Judiciary Committee, that they hired a consultant to come in and, kind of show them how to create a constitution. And the Judicial Committee actually had 7 members, but 5 of them were lawyers, and the main guy, the committee chairman, he was a lawyer. And they created this goofy system where you have 3 lawyers who are chosen by the Alaska Bar Association, and they sit on this Judicial Council with 3 members from the public, and they then vet the people who are going to be sent to the governor, and then the governor chooses which of them will be a judge. And the deal is, though, is that the lawyers, as I said, are chosen by the Alaska Bar Association, by their fellow lawyers. There are 3 public members. They are chosen like you might imagine. The governor selects them. Then they have to go through this fairly rigorous process of sitting before the legislature, in front of elected people who are representing their constituents, and be approved by the legislature. But for some reason, the lawyers don't have to go through any of that. They just go right on to the Judicial Council. Then what happens is that in the case of you've got 6 members. In case of a tie vote, then somebody comes in and breaks the tie, and that person is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, another lawyer, another member of the Alaska Bar Association. And what's happened in the last few years, that worked pretty well for a lot of years. The people who are against this bill will say, well, why are we doing this? It doesn't happen. It's only happened a tiny percentage of the time in our state's history. Well, that's a true statement, but unfortunately, it's happening a lot lately. Something has changed. And we've seen that I think it was about a 15-month period of time, there were actually 6 times where the lawyers split with the public members. The Supreme Court justice came in to break the tie and sided with the lawyers.
Well, that's not supposed to happen, is it? And Senator Pete Kelly from Fairbanks is on the phone with me here on the Glen Biegel Show, and we're talking about the Judicial Council, which is a total oddity in the state of Alaska Constitution. The lawyers literally wrote themselves into the Constitution, giving themselves superpowers, basically, to pick judges, and this hasn't been that big of a deal, of course, until 1998 when they wanted to change marriage. Then it kind of became a big deal, and people went, they want to do what? and that leads to kind of where we are now, and the judges have gotten even crazier. All right, so this has happened, and basically kind of by design, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is supposed to side with the public members. They're never supposed to side with the lawyers in case of a tie vote. What you're saying is that which we kind of accepted would never happen has now happened 6 times. The impossible.
Yeah, 6 times in about a 15-month period of time.
Well, that's because we've had conservative governors who have appointed conservative people, and we have had liberal left-wing fanatics who are just happen to be lawyers who love the Bar Association and love lawyer rule.
Yeah. Well, as much as I enjoy taking on the judiciary and taking big left hooks at them, I'm a little less concerned about the people who inhabit those seats right now, and more just about the process that gets them there. And the process is pretty flawed.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine anybody saying, you know what, we've got this 0.5% of Alaska is made up by lawyers.
Right.
Tell you what, why don't we grant them the ability to pick our entire judiciary? Who could possibly be for that? Other than the lawyers and left-wing fanatics who like the makeup of the judiciary now, which is very left.
Well, there's something that happens in this that I think it was an unintended consequence, and that was that the Supreme Court justice is put in a position of a conflict of interest, because as they're choosing it's usually just 2 people that get sent on to the governor.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, by the way.
That is in itself, that is kind of silly.
That wasn't the intent of the original framers, from what I understand.
Right. And as they're making that choice, you cannot help but think they have to have in the back of their mind, oh, this person will go along with me on such and such a case, or this person will be an easy vote for such and such a situation. So they're able to choose their own colleagues. And it's just a very unusual situation.
Well, I sure hope you've got a hearing in the Alaska Dispatch News, which of course they savaged you, and then there were various commentators and opinion pieces which came out after that. I just want people to know we have a very odd circumstance, a very odd situation in the state of Alaska, and it's written into the Constitution. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody would say, yeah, gee, the people who I want running things are lawyers, so it's not political. Really?
Oh, I know. I love that one.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously that's not how it's turned out at all. It has become legalistically political, meaning that the left-wing lawyers and their bar association and their lawyer schools get to choose all of our judiciary, and it doesn't make any sense. The most meaningless one, by the way, two cases that people probably don't even know. The first one was Valley Hospital versus Planned Parenthood, and they said that the legislature was not allowed to decide whether or not we would have well baby care or abortion funding. That if they were going to fund well baby care, this was our judiciary which said that. We're like, well, we elect our people; they can decide what priorities we want. I mean, why is that part of the Constitution? That was the first crazy decision. Of course, the marriage one was another one, but the other one I think most people object to is people said as soon as you can have sex, your parents no longer are going to be involved in your sexuality and your decision on as to whether or not to carry your child to term. That freaked people out because that was a 5-0 decision, and it just goes to show you these are really left-wing, crazy people. That's never been the case in the Western world.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of being involved in many of these cases. Actually, I wrote the constitutional amendment, the House version of the constitutional amendment that eventually defined marriage. And I don't know, I was in the legislature before, and then I came back, and this was back in the early 2000s. We put in a provision in the budget. I was one of the co-chairs at the time. They called it a poison pill, which said essentially that if anything in this is if the courts decide that any of these funds are going to be used for abortion, then all the funds are embargoed, essentially. And then, of course, none of these things work because, you go to the courts and generally they say, you didn't see, you did everything you were supposed to do, but you didn't say, "Mother, may I?" And we get stuck with it. But here's one of my biggest problems. It doesn't have that much to do with the judiciary. It has to do with lawyers as politicians. They're often very good at it, and I know a whole bunch of them that I think are just fantastic people. But one of the problems is that they go to school and they're taught from the time they get into that their seat in a law school that the judge is in charge, and they get their chance to fight like heck in a courtroom. But then if the judge, who's the referee, says, no, you lose, then what you do is you kind of get up from your chair and go have a beer with the opposing attorney, because of course that's what the court said, the court's rule. The problem is they get into the legislature and they don't fight for their branch of government. They still think that the judges are in charge, and they don't understand we're supposed to fight for our branch of government because we, the people, the Constitution says that the legislature is the people, that we're in charge, not some unelected judges who are not only are they not elected in this state, they're chosen by people who aren't elected. They're chosen by people who aren't elected. They aren't even confirmed.
Yeah. And the real difficulty to not approving judges to be put back in is the Judicial Council is going to select all the new judges. And it's not like our lawyer schools have gotten any better. Hey, Pete Kelly, can you stay on with me? I've got some other questions about the budget, about the gas line thing.
Sure.
Anywhere you want to go to, I want to make sure we cover the topics. Pete Kelly, a great conservative from Fairbanks, and trying to fix a constitutional problem that the lawyers have created for us. And unfortunately, we're kind of left with a mess here. It's called the Judicial Council. And I realized that I had some difficulty saying that earlier, Bonnie, but I fixed them. Now we're back. We're back in charge of our own tongue. 28 minutes after the hour. It is The Glen Biegel Show here on KVNT. This is your drive home. It's my pleasure to be with you. Give us a call, 569-1080 and 357-5868. Stay tuned. 27 minutes before the hour, feeling a little out of sorts today. I had a tuna wrap earlier. Yeah, I got a wrinkled nose there from Bonnie. I appreciate that, Bonnie. Thanks for... This is what my wife offered me. This is what I ate. And, it wasn't... I don't know. It was a tuna wrap. But she put some curry powder in it instead of just... So it tastes a little more like chicken. So it wasn't bad.
I like tuna, but if I try to feed it to my husband, he'll die.
Oh, he would react somewhat violently?
Yeah, I can't do tuna anymore.
Yeah, got to be careful about that. KOAN, KVNT, the Glen Biegel Show. Bonnie Cameron is here as well. If you have a question for Senator Pete Kelly, please give us a call. Love to hear from you. Senator Kelly, welcome back.
Hello.
It's got to be a difficult situation down in Juneau. I mean, I guess nobody really saw this drop in oil prices coming. It's really lucky, by the way, we have Senate Bill 21 in place.
Yes, it is. We're making hundreds of millions of dollars more than we would have under the old tax system. And I don't know how. There are some in public office and there are some in the press who hold to this myth that somehow the only way to make the oil companies pay their fair share is to go back to the old tax regime called ACES, when in fact that would get us less money. I don't even understand it. It's one of those things that leaves a question mark above my head.
Yeah, well, it came from a couple of published pieces by the Alaska Dispatch News, where what they said was, well, if we have $120 or $150 or $118 a barrel oil, we make more than we make, Senate Bill 20 under ACES versus Senate Bill 21. Of course, we went under 105, which was the break-even point. So those pieces were a lie, and they never published the corrections.
Right.
So that would be very helpful for people if the Alaska Dispatch News would come out and publish a correction to their original faulty articles.
I actually think that they did do that at the very beginning of the session, after the unfortunate opinion piece by the governor where he said that there are all these tax credits in place that were from the big three oil producers, and really what they were tax credits in the Cook Inlet and from some of the small ones, and they made the link that was somehow related to SB 21, that we were giving away all these credits because of SB 21. In fact, the credit regime under ACES was much worse for the state. Huge checks that we would write, and we wrote checks that did not get us production. You could go build a mess hall or an air runway or something like that and get credit. The SB 21 credits are specifically for oil produced, so you have to produce in order to get the credit. But that continues. I mean, it was crazy. It kind of it's a little disturbing. There's a legislator down here. I won't say who it is, but when the young kids come in from the college or the high schools or something, this guy actually has a PowerPoint about SB 21 and ACES, and of course the information is mostly false about ACES.
Was it Hollis French? Because he was the guy who was up against Kathy Giesel, and I remember he was the most, but he's not down there anymore, right?
No, he's not down there. It's people are still down there.
I can imagine a couple of his acolytes are still whipping up the crowds.
Yeah.
Senator Pete Kelly on the phone with me, 569-1080. If you have a question for him, the Clear Air Force Base, I think, got a directive, and I'm not sure whether you know this, about changing from coal, from the Usabelli coal mine up there, and they're looks like they're going to be forced to change over to diesel as part of sort of the president's assault on everything below. In other words, oil, coal. Have you heard of it?
I haven't heard of it, but I mean, nothing surprises me with either this president or with environmentalists. I mean, coal, for one thing, it's plentiful and it can be burned rather clean. At the university, we struggle with the fact that the coal plant that is going in up there actually produces fewer particulates than natural gas, but it has all these horrendous restrictions on it, even though it's cleaner burning, and we can't build it to a certain size and those kinds of restrictions. So it's just never ending. And you look at our problems in Alaska. You know, our budget problems, you know, lay them right at the feet of the environmentalists. In Louisiana, you know, you're going to spend 30 days waiting for an air permit upon the Arctic Ocean is going to take 5 years, and the company spend, you know, $5 billion in the meantime, still waiting on their air permit. You know, you go from drill bit to barrel of oil in the Midwest in 45 days, and we just talk in normal terms of 10 years before you can have a field developed. Now, by the way, I would admit there are differences between Alaska and North Dakota, because mostly you're dealing with private property there. But nonetheless, we're just at such a disadvantage, and environmentalists are shutting us down. They continue to shut us down in the courts. We get goofy decisions, particularly out of the Ninth Circuit, and their desire is to shut us down. And you look at our production curve; it's dropping. Part of the reasons it's dropping is because it's a mature field, but more than that, it's because it's just so difficult to get oil out of the ground up here.
If we had the same oil fields that are present up here in other places governed the same way, we would have massive amounts of production.
Yeah, you look just at ANWR. There's something like 10 billion barrels of oil up there that is literally a stone's throw away from Point Thompson, and we can't get to it. You know, there's something like 40 billion barrels in ANWR and the Chukchi and parts of NPRA that we can't get. All this, you know, in Alaska, oil equals funding for schools, funding for Medicaid, funding for police, funding for special needs people. It is where we get our money. 90% of our government is paid for by oil dollars, and the environmentalists are doing that.
Well, I'm glad you're down in Juneau. Is it as hard as we've heard for you to get regular, average, everyday people, or, you know, are you finding a pretty good stream of them coming to your door?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because we have, you know, when we're in our districts, we have constant contact, and it's very easy to get a hold of us. But when we come down here, you know, I'm you know, 600 miles like that, and it's difficult.
Well, I do wish that you guys would hold the special session up here, and maybe even move the legislature up here so that its normal meeting times and meeting place was here.
You know, I don't mind having the special session in Anchorage. I think that would be a good idea, as a matter of fact, because it would it'd be far less expensive and just easier to put together when you need to kind of ramp up quickly and get some important issue done with. But I actually prefer the Capitol down here because.
Well, could you move the legislature without moving the Capitol?
Well, I guess what I mean is I think I prefer the legislature down here, because for one reason, you know, we used to have kind of a built-in term limit because the districts were so far away, and it was difficult for people to come down here. And if you had the legislature in Anchorage or Fairbanks or Wasilla or something like that, these guys would be in there forever.
So you think that, because I don't even know what the average term is. It seems like it's around 10, 12, 14 years, maybe.
Yeah, it's about 10. You know, this is kind of old. I figured this average out back when I was in the 90s and the 2000s, and it was around 10 years. I think it's a little higher now, but still, it's not that bad.
One last thing, the gas line. There is a bill to sort of stop the Alaska Gas Line Development Corporation, AGDC, from growing to be the full-blown massive export line. Where do you stand on that? And do you really think that Exxon is moving toward a pipeline for us, even with these lower oil prices? I mean, give us a lay of the land as far as the two sort of competing ideas.
Well, we were moving forward, and we were meeting timelines. We were under budget, and we had a plan to deliver 2023, 2024, something like that. And part of it had to do with alignment. And for the longest time, as I was trying to figure all this stuff out, I thought alignment was just kind of a term that you threw around. But it wasn't. Alignment is something that happens when you are in partnership with these other companies. And by the way, we have to be in partnerships with them, or we just won't make any money off a gas line, no matter how big it is. But the problem is the minute you go into competition with them, the walls go up, and the communicate should, because we made agreements that we wouldn't do that, or that if we did, and everyone knew that they
And
wouldn't have
basically,
to.
Exxon's they texted out something or posted something very brief that basically said, "Well, we don't really understand what's going on here, so we're going to have to relook at our options."
Right.
Which I think most people read as, "Whoa, we're not. What's the lay of the land here?"
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, things were going along quite well, and thing gets shut down because we changed, and it wouldn't be we, the legislature, but the governor changed. First of all, he fired. First of all, he says the people can't sign the confidentiality agreements. Second of all, he fires 3 people with a tremendous amount of expertise. So we're going to expand what was going to be the backup line. The reason ASAP exists is we can go forward with it along with the big pipeline, just in case the big pipeline never comes to pass. Then we'll at least hit use and possibly some export. But you start putting too much money and expanding that ASAP line, the backup line, and you almost assure that you kill the big line. So I'm not. I've been trying to be pretty supportive of this governor. I kind of want him to succeed because it's in the state's best interest, but I certainly don't want him to succeed at something that's going to mess things up, and I'm on the wrong track on this.
Could he get $65 billion to come in from Tokyo Gas, from KOGAS, from Mitsubishi? I mean, is it possible for him to sign a 30 or 40-year deal that would get the state of Alaska $65 billion to build all this infrastructure?
No.
So you think literally that's not possible? He's not even looking for that?
I'd be more comfortable with somebody like Kathy Giesel answering that question, because I'm the co-chairman of the operating budget.
Well, I'm going to try and have her and Harold Hines on Friday, and I'm trying to get to Harold Hines because I really do want to have this conversation. I don't understand why anyone would give us $65 billion. That seems largest the United States history. And
I know.
And
so the lady that was the consultant that we had 2 years ago when we were putting all this together, and we asked her about owning. This is the largest project in the history of the United States, and this isn't something you probably want to cut your teeth on. I thought that was pretty good advice.
No, I think you're right, and people have to realize our entire, not the permanent fund check, but the whole permanent fund is going to be essentially on the line at some point during this. If gas prices go down in the Near East, I mean, we could be looking at a total loser and an absolute loss where we could not produce a single, cubic foot of gas and make money off of it. So it'd all have to be shut down. Very risky. Hey, Pete Kelly, Senator Kelly, I really appreciate you being on and giving us some info on the Judicial Council.
Really glad to be on your show. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. 14 minutes before the hour. It is the Glen Biegel Show. Bonnie Cameron waiting for your call on the other side of the 569-1080. Welcome to KOAN and KVNT. The Glen Biegel Show continues. And I would love to hear from you, 569-1080. If you are driving between here in the Valley and have reached our valley, the cell towers out there, 357-5868. I hope you tune into Tom Anderson on the morning. He is hilarious. That will get your morning moving in the right direction. But I've very much been enjoying him. And Joe Miller's on just before me here on KOAN. And you can check out lots of different streaming options as well. 1080 KOAN, 1020KVNT.com. And you'll find a couple of ways to stream there. We're still working on something to do with Android, is my understanding. And but it does work for iPhone. That's a pretty important deal. My friends over at Country Financial, they know a lot of questions, and they don't know what the answers are because only you will know what the answers are. I was kind of surprised at some of the answers that I gave. They give you scenarios that, well, if this happens or this happens, which one are you going to favor? Where do you want to go with that? And it has questions to do about different kinds of insurance, protect your car, your home, your farms, your lives. And then also your retirement. What kind of a retirement do you see yourself having? What would it take to get there? How much time have you got? The earlier you start, of course, the better off you are. They're just great at what they do, and they've got locations all over the state of Alaska. It's very important, by the way, to have somebody who sits across the table with you because it's like a 2-hour conversation you're going to have. Kent was the representative that talked to me and walked me through what my responsibilities and what my options were. And I hope you give them a call. 866-COUNTRY is their number. Country Financial is their name. And country is spelled?
COUNTRY.
Indeed, it is. 569-1080, that is the number. 569. I don't really get what is going on, by the way, with Democrats. Let me read 3 stories which in past years, I think would have resulted in a complete removal and replacement of every Democrat in the federal Senate. I think it would have. In years past, not anymore. Understandably so. I guess global warming is such a big deal to Democrats. They really think that the earth is going to end and we're all going to die in a fiery ball. Now, if you're on the East Coast, by the way, Washington, D.C., 35 years since they've had a winter or a month this cold. Alaska's, the jet stream has changed. You just have to accept that. And it's warmer air that we get from down south, and the colder air is slamming the crud out of California and the Midwest and all the other places. The East Coast is just getting totally hammered. Anyway, let me give you the 3 stories. I don't know why it is the Democrats don't seem to care about this stuff anymore. Obama to ban bullets by executive action. Threatens the top-selling AR-15 rifle. You used to just not be able to come out and say, look, I'm going to ban your guns one piece at a time. I'm going to ban your triggers. I'm going to ban your bullets. I'm going to ban your scopes. I'm going to ban your cartridges. You used to not be able to do that. Different Democrat Party. Same Republican Party, different Democrat Party. My guess is a lot of people don't recognize this guy. Listen to this. Obama is, quote, very interested in raising taxes through executive action. If this had happened 15 years ago and Bill Clinton, even Bill Clinton, the beloved, the wonderful family man that he is, the upstanding, beautiful American citizen that you would trust your daughter with, and all of the other female members of your family. I don't know why women wanted to be married to Bill Clinton. What is wrong with you? I mean, seriously, I guess he's a go-getter. Is that what you're looking for? While you're with him, you're going to be convinced that you are his everything. And, of course, as soon as he leaves and pick up the next honey, whatever. Anyway, but even 15 years ago, this just never would have happened. And, of course, if it had happened under any Democrats would have gone through the roof. Obama, very interested in raising taxes through executive action. We used to have something called the Constitution until the Democrats got a majority, a majority of people. They don't care about the Constitution. They literally could care less. I don't even know how many letters it is. What is it? 12 letters, 11 letters, something like that. There's no letters in the entire English language than the Constitution. What difference does the Constitution make? You used to have to go through a legislative process. Remember that? Well, you remember the old days when we used to be able to do that, and we used to be able to say, well, if you get it through the legislative process, it's got to be approved by the president. Now everything's executive action. Well, everything. This is what happens, by the way, when you win by 9 million votes in 2008 and Obama won by 5 million votes in 2012. They don't think Hillary is beatable. And there is no difference between Obama and Hillary. There's not a hair's worth of difference. They're going to have exactly the same policies. It will be more shrillishly, offered, I'm sure, by Hillary's horrible voice. That's mean, by the way, isn't it? Is it mean to say that Hillary's got a horrible voice?
Not if it's true.
We're fierce. We're feminists, and we're in your face. Okay, well, anyway, I don't like Hillary's voice. I will admit that, especially when she raises her voice. Other than when she raises it at Bill Clinton, then I actually do appreciate it because she probably means that. And that's for a good purpose. She is trying to make the world a better place. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest confirmed Monday that President Obama is, quote, very interested in the idea of raising taxes through unilateral executive action. I guess a little surprising. Blowback against Democrats' McCarthyite investigation continues. I would like to see this blowback, by the way. I don't know that it's happening. Stephen Hayward is covering this, and basically what's going on is they are investigating every climate scientist that doesn't agree with the far left that the earth is going to boil over and everything is going to die. By the way, every person who has gone through school does believe what I just said is going to happen. If Republicans are ever elected again, the earth will boil over, massive numbers of creatures will dioxide in the air than we have now. All the species didn't die. The polar bears didn't die when it was warmer back in, I think, 900 AD. It was well warmer than it is now. There was no sea ice in the wintertime. I know that you want things. You've been convinced of this by your professors and by your teachers and by the school district and whatever. But it's just not true. Okay, I'll let you know. Yes, it's been warming for a little while, about 400 years. That's well longer than actually we've been putting carbon dioxide in the air, by the way. None of this matters. It's just talking to the wind. The other side is absolutely convinced with a religious fervency that the earth is coming to a swift and terrible. And 2 minutes before the hour, you're listening to the Glen Biegel Show. Love to hear from you. Happy Monday, everybody. This is your drive home. KOAN, KVNT, the Glen Biegel program continues. Stay tuned. What was that look for?
I don't like this music.
Oh, well, I actually have 4 or 5 songs which we're going to roll out. Joe Miller stole my song, though, by the way.
Are you ever going to forgive him for that?
Well, it's not about forgiveness. It's about getting even. The question is, how will I get even?
Who's got the better song?
That I haven't figured out. No, you can't. There's no better song. I mean, he stole the perfect song. We'll figure out. We'll
which one was it again?
Awake and Alive by Skillet.
Oh, okay.
That was my song. I played it on my old show for years.
And he didn't ask for permission to steal it.
Not only did he not, he's lording it over me.
Oh.
I don't know how, but I know he is.
By playing it every day.
6 minutes after the hour of the Glen Biegel Show, Bonnie Cameron in studio here with me, taking phone calls. She is our producer, and she takes care of all the technical aspects of the show. 569-1080. And if you are out in the valley on that side of the dial, 357-5868, 357-KVNT. And there are a number of things that I would like to cover with you today, some of which include hawking out my son. I don't know whether this is like child labor or if there are like child labor laws which prevent you from hawking out your son. I have determined that my son has some great skills, most of which would be termed destructive capability, but I'm going to couch them in the very positive idea that he is able to dismantle things which you may have in your house, which hopefully have no value. And I don't know whether, you could either pay me $5 an hour or I'll pay you $5 an hour for my son to go and dismantle things.
And you need to tell how old your son is too, so they're not picturing some,
he's
15-year-old.
He's 6.
Okay,
he's 6. But he has the destructive capability of, I'd say, a 35-year-old with a degree in explosives. Yeah. No, I mean, he is impressive. This kid can dismantle anything, and he's taken apart computers. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to turn this skill into something that's going to be valuable for him. But I am looking desperately, trying to find an opportunity for him. His name is Matthew, and he could be yours. I'll pay you $5 an hour. You pay me $5 an hour. I don't care which way the money goes.
You just need it to be put into a good use.
We just have to find something.
Well, I know a guy who makes a lot of money now who used to take apart things when he was little.
Oh.
And he's an engineer on something or other, and
okay,
he's into the big bucks, and he used to do that as a kid. Take apart radios, put them back together, computers.
But he put them back together.
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't actually
There's
destroy things as a. No, I mean, we're getting to the point where you're not sure whether or not the doorknob that you're about to open will just come off in your hand because he's taken the screws out of the other side. You never know. You have no idea. I think we were down working in the garage one day, and I had this pile of car radios or something like that. And we'd given him a DVD player, an old DVD player to take apart. And he took that apart. He took each and every piece off. I mean, he was really diligent about dismantling every possible thing. Then when he got down to bare metal, he smashed everything else with a sledgehammer. Now, this kid has a desire. He has a real deep inbred seriousness about this. And then while I wasn't looking, he got one of the real car radios, which actually, I don't know how much it was worth, but then he dismantled that and smashed that. I'm like, whoa, what happened here? We went from the things we want to dismantle to the things we don't want to dismantle. Just because something's down here in the garage doesn't mean I want it destroyed.
Well, then that's what you got to do. You got to tell him if he takes it apart, he has to put it back together.
Yeah. He probably would accidentally build like the world's first intelligent robot or something like that, Love to hear from you. 569-1080. Happy Monday, everyone. We have a pizza party in the works, or a wings party. Something is something in our near future. Can't tell them what I'm saying wrong.
Okay, we're on our way, though.
Under any circumstances, you're not allowed to actually reveal what the phrase that pays, actually it pays you from is. So don't ever reveal that. But I just want people to know we're $3 down so far And when we get to 20, whoever wins, here's my thought on the show. You are allowed to come to the yes, I screwed up in a big way, pizza party or wing party or whatever, and everybody could come.
We'll have a big
Literally,
party.
everybody could come, but I'm just saying. When we get somewhere between 15 and $20, we're gonna.
And this is definitely healthier than shots.
Yeah.
Every time Glenn says whatever, then
Yeah, we don't.
it's not whatever. That's not the phrase.
We don't want a drinking game made out of this for sure. Environmentalists to sue Port of Seattle over Shell's Arctic drilling fleet. If you don't think that your job, your livelihood, your ability to work, live, build a house, build your cabin could be shut down by the environmentalists, you just aren't reading the right news articles, because this one lays that out. I'll give you some updates here as well on the Fairbanks North Star Borough, where you can smoke a pot. And we had in the last hour, I had Senator Pete Kelly on, who's a great conservative from the Fairbanks area, and he was telling us about this proposed limits on what the Alaska Gas Line Development Corporation, ASAP. Is that too many? AGDC with the ASAP line?
Yes, I think that's intentional to confuse the public. I've decided that.
We have ACES and AGEA. I thought ACES and AGEA was marketing.
Yes, but ASAP, that's been taken.
Yes.
Please don't take it over.
All right. Alaska standalone pipeline, and the AGDC is the Alaska Gas Line Development Corporation. There are a whole bunch of other acronyms to NABAs, but he told us that they were trying to build sort of a limit around how much the state could do. This was the phrase that he said the legislature had hired gave to them. This was her advice. She said, ladies and gentlemen, this project that you are thinking of undertaking will be the largest project in the history of the United States of America. I don't know that you want to cut your teeth on this one. This may not be the best risk for your state to take. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show. It is 12 minutes after the hour. Give us a call, 569-1080. Stay tuned. "16 minutes after the hour, 569-1080 is the number. And 357-5868 if you are on your way out to the valley. Tell you what, there's one group of people who I really hope, if you're looking for a new car, if you're looking for a car to serve your family for a long period of time, Payless Car Sales is just the place to go. They want you armed with as many facts as you can get, and then finish that up by not being a Craigslist loser like me. Go in and find yourself the car of your dreams at a price you can't afford. 677 Auto is the number, online at paylesssales.com, and 919 East 5th. They take great care of our military, by the way. If you are a military member, they make a special thanks to you with each and every deal. So make sure to go down, check them out, 677 Auto, Payless Car Sales. I love technology. I really do. So I saw this piece by Sean Dugan in the Alaska Dispatch News. Office space, new building uses energy-efficient materials, takes shape in Midtown Anchorage. There was a Blade Runner. That was the name of the movie, Blade Runner, with Harrison Ford. And they had this one room, which it was very memorable. It was this billionaire who made robots. And these robots did all kinds of stuff. And he ended up making robots that actually looked human. And actually, they essentially were human. They died after a short period of time. The light that burns twice as bright lasts half as long, was the line in the movie. Anyway, but in this one guy's office, he has this fancy, obviously it's a billionaire's office. There's no doubt about it. It is one of the fanciest places you've ever seen, and things you would never find anywhere else. But he has the ability to turn down the lights, and no shades actually come down. It's the windows themselves just stop letting in as much light. It's the coolest thing that you'd ever seen back in whatever it was, 1982 or whenever Blade Runner came out. Anyway, so they're actually starting to put this stuff into real office buildings. New office tower going up Midtown Anchorage, making the most of its location. Panoramic views in every direction. 8-story Fireweed Business Center being built by Siri. Oh, yeah, they are making a ton of money here in the state of Alaska, funneling money to other huge corporations. A story a little later in the program. Might be able to get to that about Alaska Native Corporation helped transform Dish Network, yes, the $34 billion company, into a very small business in order to get a federal contract. Anyway, Siri is the beneficiary of lots and lots of money. How about this, though? Was that dim automatically to cut glare and reduce summer solar heating. Computer-controlled LED interior sage gel for insulation, and light diffuser panels made with microscopic chips of silicone could reduce usage by up to 30%. How do you like that? Sounds pretty fancy. I love it when ideas to make this stuff happen. We're in the midst of revolution after revolution after revolution. Just look at your iPhone. Look at this Android phone that I have in my hand. I mean, these things were just not possible. The kind were not possible to do a very short number of years ago by anyone. And that's by NASA, by the most expensive corporation in the world. Before 2000, a device like my phone never existed anywhere in the world. Now they're in, every third person in the midst of revolution. So I love to read stories like that. All right, let's get into this. Environmentalists suing the Port of Seattle over Shell's Arctic drilling fleet. I'm telling you right, every law they need. They don't need any more laws. They've got as many lawyers that are now judges on the courts. They've had control of the Democrat Party, and they have control over the schools and the media. And the result is just this. Listen to the fear in this. And here's what I want you to take away before I go into this. it's not that Shell is doing anything odd or weird. They could easily be punished for any bad thing that actually happens at the port. This is the way that we used to run our court system. They said, well, you can sign leases with people. If they mess up, though, you're on the hook and they're on the hook. Say, okay, fine. You can fine me. You could even take my business. You could terminate my ability to employ people and take everything I have. You might even make me put up a bond. Now, different kind of law, which says that we fear the kinds of things that you might do, even though you've never done them before, even though you have all these technologies to prevent them from happening. But we're going to sue you so that our fears of coming true because you've been stopped before you can even get started. Several environmental groups on Monday sued the Port of Seattle to prevent Royal Dutch Shell from using Seattle front. I love that. Seattle's waterfront. You can tell this is the Associated Press here for its Arctic oil drilling fleet. It actually is not the waterfront. It is the Port of Seattle. I don't know how many people consider the Port of Seattle to be the same place. I've been down to the waterfront at Seattle. It's beautiful, Pier whatever, and you got all the restaurants and the fresh fish and all that kind of stuff. Not the Port of Seattle. You can't even get into the Port of Seattle, so it's not the waterfront. This is from Phuong Lee from the Associated Press, who wrote this travesty of a false piece. Anyway, the Port of Seattle in early February signed a 2-year lease with Foss Maritime Company, whose client to rent 50 acres across from downtown Seattle in the port. The lawsuit filed in King County Superior Court by Earth Justice. Listen to these great, fantastic, job-loving, just very trusting people. Let's see. Puget Soundkeeper Alliance, the Sierra Club, the Seattle, and Washington Environmental Council. In a statement Monday, the port said it had not received the lawsuit, but it, quote, believes it complied with all necessary environmental requirements. Here's what they got them on. They think that the environmentalists are going to probably win this. The result is going to be devastating for Alaska, in all likelihood, by the way. The port is allowed to rent to people who are loading animals, not necessarily storing their equipment there. And what the environmentalists are saying is, we really think you're actually storing your stuff there, sheltering it until you need to bring it back into Alaska. Now, what's the goal of the environmentalists? Clean oil development? No, they want no oil development. Do they know that they can harry and harass and just constantly beat on companies that want to do business only in the United States? Only here, nowhere else. It's not like they're going to go over to Russia and say, hey, we don't think that you should be able to lease your port facilities called waterfront to somebody who's going to develop oil resources in your country. They'd be laughed out of Canada. They'd be laughed out of every other place on the planet other than here. So if you are a member of Earth Justice, Puget Soundkeeper Alliance, the Sierra Club, the Seattle Audubon Society, and the Washington Environmental Council, congratulations. You may be able to terminate for yet another year, maybe 2 years, maybe forever. I mean, that's the real question is, at some point, does Shell just give up on the United States of America? Does Shell just say, look, all right, you win. We're done. We quit. We're going to go to Norway. We're going to go to Sweden. We're going to go to Finland. Because over in Norway and Sweden and Finland, they have the fantastic, and in Canada and in Mexico and in Argentina and, all these other places. Once you get the drilling permit, you actually can't wait. Within 3 years, you're required to have oil go to market. 3 years. That's how much time you have. It's been 7-8 years right now. We're still suing the pants off of Shell. I'm surprised they have any pants left. Shell is considering offshore exploratory drilling again, leading to Alaska. 54,000 jobs is how many jobs these this will bring to Alaska and people who may not live here. Maybe half the jobs would be filled by Alaskans. I don't know how many people capable out in the Chukchi we have in building pipelines and processing facilities and all the different things that happen. Construction jobs would go to us. Well, what do you do about it? The situation, we have given ground over and over and over again. And there are people who live in fear, and they live in fear of oil companies, and they live in fear of everything. I just have to let you want to know what the most polluted place on the planet is? Not the business down the street, it's your house. It's where your dog goes to the bathroom. It's where you wash your car. That's the most polluted place on the planet. If they wanted to shut down your house, they could, they would. And they will at some point. Maybe if you have 9 kids. I don't know. It's a wild world that we live in. And I don't get the fear of the left. I don't know how to even combat it because, they've been given access to the schools. They started training my wife when she was in 3rd grade or something that California was going to be under 50 feet of water because of global warming. This is back in the 80s. That's how long they've been working on us. Well, it's a wild world. We can win, though. We have to be able to win. We look at this and what Alaskans should take from this, take a personal affront to the Sierra Club and Puget Soundkeeper Alliance and the Seattle Audubon Society and Washington Environmental Council. Be mad. Know that your job and your family's future is on the line and that you should do something about it. Do not live in the fear of the left. They are crazy. They have fantastic laws which govern us and prevent bad things from happening. 28 minutes after the hour. That is the time. Catherine Newmeyer from Holy Rosary Academy is going to be up with us next. Stay tuned. The Glen Biegel Show continues. 27 minutes before the hour. 569-1080 is the number. This is your drive home, whether you're in the valley or here in Anchorage. And I think the signal actually gets down to Kenai nowadays, too. Bonnie's on the other side of the glass. In studio with me, Catherine Newmeyer, who is the head of Holy Rosary Academy, the principal.
Correct.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And one of the things I wanted to start with was my daughter. Finally, one of my children is getting married, and I'm very excited about that. I feel like it's a huge accomplishment for me to not only get them out of the house, but get rid of them in the best possible way. And she met Holy Rosary.
She did.
So yeah, and actually one of the things I think I'm looking forward to, and I think it's going to be a voyage of discovery for both of us, is we're going to set up the school, and they're actually going to have their reception there.
That's right. That's right. It's great excitement already. I have lots of plans and ideas. Not only be so appropriate because they met there, but certainly we have the facility to really offer them a wonderful reception. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, me too. Let's all the way over there for you. Me too. I don't really know. I know that I'm supposed to give a speech at some point during the whole thing, and I'm supposed to embarrass her like worse than a life.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, you have to tell the stories of when she was 4 years old. And, she ran streaking through the neighborhood without clothes on and things like that.
I think her biggest her long series of mistakes started when she and her brother climbed up a tree, and Reagan has a gash, a mark on his head still
Permanent gash
from the
exploit
from the experience. Education is a big deal. People will know at least a few things that I find odd, and the first one is how expensive traditional education is, brick and mortar education, as opposed to Holy Rosary education, about 1/3 as expensive. Are the scores at the school still keeping up with where they were?
They are. In fact, they increased in the reading, the writing, and the math again this year. So
do you have a feeling that the other side is struggling trying to maintain? And I realize a lot of this has to do with family structure and maybe just the strength of the schools, in general. And it's not necessarily individual children's fault. But Holy Rosary was about 3 grades ahead in just about every grade, which is, it's got to be hard to keep that up.
It is hard, but it just continues to be consistent. But I firmly believe that when certain ingredients are part of your education, you'll continue to succeed. And what I think we forget, and we forget this in the public schools as well, is what you're doing is you're not putting kids through a mill like the Industrial Revolution, and you just go through the mill of education. That's what we're not talking about. Or we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is habits of the mind. And what you want to become habitually part of the mind is the ability to engage in you, whatever task it is. So when it's math, you're able to engage in that. Doesn't mean that you love math. You may be an English person, but because of the habits that you're fostering and that you're developing within each of those classes in a consistent way, you begin to develop the ability to engage in things even for which you didn't know you were interested. And then you also, if the school is doing what it should be doing, as you get older and older, you begin to see that all of the subjects are not separate, but actually interrelated. And they are what we call the liberal arts. That's what you're learning at the high school level anyway. That's what you're learning from elementary through high school, the liberal arts. Those arts, and it's the habit of the mind that frees you to think about anything that you're asked to think about and to be able to engage. And I would argue that many places have forgotten that the way young people is through those habits, but first it's through an attraction. It's a sense of wonder and a wanting to know. And that if you set that before the children, rather than here's a piece of paper, fill it out, I'm going to give you the answers, we move on. No, instead, here are the questions. you tell me what the answers are. And Johnny, you respond to what Susie just said. Now they're engaged in their education. It's not us opening their skull and cramming in information.
Well, the results to me speak for themselves. I know that Holy Rosary is a top 50 Catholic high school for Catholic school.
Nationally, yes.
Yeah, nationally, and has been for 6-7 years. And all my oldest 6 now have been a part of the school.
Yes.
By the way, you're talking habits of the mind. I don't know why, but there was a guy, Brian. He actually is going to be the master of ceremonies at Mara's reception at Holy Rosary. And his habits of his mind always related to cheese. And so I'm wondering, is
how
cheese,
it's going to play a factor.
Is cheese a big...
How do you take a picky eater and make them not one?
Well, you know, I'd actually love to speak to the fact that Michael and Mara are getting married, because they've only, you know, both of them have been away from Holy Rosary Academy now, and they're 4 years away now. So they are following a trajectory we don't see in the culture anymore, which is that you get through high school, you graduate, you go on to college, or in Michael's case, onto a career in the military. And then there's sort of an appropriate time, and you go ahead and you get married and you start your family in your 20s.
Mhm.
And that's something that you just don't see anymore. It's not part of the culture. But one of the reasons that I think that they are able to embark on this is that at Holy Rosary, the emphasis of their relationship was how they related not only to each other, but to the community. And by that, I mean, Holy Rosary isn't a place where you come to have romance. That takes place off campus.
Mhm.
What you do is you come to learn how to foster
There are
genuine
things
friendship.
called what is it? No public displays
No
of
public
affection.
displays of affection.
They could have public displays of disdain, argumentativeness. Those were very highly encouraged, as they would argue with each other. See, their marriage, to me, it could be, and that is they learn how to argue like in very productive
Civilly.
ways.
Yeah.
In high school.
Yeah, in a civil way. And they learned how to be students, and that was their first task at hand. Their first task at hand was not marriage yet. It just wasn't the place for it. And I get frustrated when I go to schools and I see and hands in the different pockets and all of those things that really don't belong in that context. And yet I think adults feel powerless to say, why don't you grow in friendship? And in this context, your first priority, Rosary, it's growing in the faith. Secondly, it's your intellectual development. And third, it is your social development, and that's critically important. And to learn how to get along with boys, to learn how to get along with girls. Your romantic learning takes place, God willing, under the guidance of your family and in the context of your family. And that's where it belongs. Mara and Michael were at school. Everybody knew that they liked each other and that they were interested in each other.
I was a little surprised.
But it wasn't something that impeded either of them in terms of their studies. And
they were still very successful, and they're moving on to be successful at life. You know, it's funny because each one of my children who've gone through there, and I have one that graduated 2 years ago and one that's graduating this year, and they all are in sort of in the same vein. You know, the girls, the boys, it hasn't taken over their life.
mm-hmm.
There's still the seriousness about life is trying to figure out, well, what does life have to offer? You know, how am I going to create a culture of excellence around myself? Or yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that I put it as their parent.
Right.
But where they prepare themselves so that they can actually be ready to be married. Because,
Yes.
you know, one of the conversations which I think is very powerful, every father needs to be ready to have it and have it with their daughters.
Yes.
And the conversation is, this boy cannot take care of you. He can't. It doesn't matter how you feel about him, and it doesn't matter how he feels about you. He can't take you.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this may be a great thing later in life when he can,
right,
you have to wait for that.
Right.
You know, but that conversation where you sort of press the reset button and say, we're not ready for these feelings yet,
Right.
because you guys are you're just little guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where, as a principal, I want to be so respectful of the genuine feelings that kids are feeling, but help them to put them into the right places, into the right context. And by the habits of the mind, by fostering that ability to think rationally first on the hierarchy for the emotions, and the concupiscence sets in, which is part of who we are as human beings as well. But it has to be in the proper order, the intellect, the will.
Once
and
it comes
then-
in and often overshadows everything else,
Right,
pushes everything else
right.
out. So,
And if you can help reorder them and help bring them back to what is the purpose of my time here at school now in my life, if you can bring them back to that, they'll be a richer, stronger, and a better person, a better spouse, all those things.
we are in the midst of a very serious question for the state of Alaska, and I know that the current public schools, they basically have a monopoly. And I think we have of students go to public school here in the state of Alaska of any place in the entire country.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's over 95%, and it's because it is just very expensive that essentially private schools and smaller schools have a difficult time competing when there's this unlimited amount of
Right.
public money.
Right.
But there's not an unlimited amount of public money. That's what we're and we'll discuss that. We'll discuss discipline and sports. So many things. If you have questions, Catherine Newmeyer, principal, Holy Rosary Academy, with me. It's 15 minutes before the hour, and I really hope people, even if this is not the school that you're going to choose, you look for ways to make your school and your child's experience sort of mimic this, because I think this is what really makes sense. Let me tell you about Earhart Roofing. If you are looking for a new roof for either your business, your house, your commercial property, there's just one place to do it. Better Business Bureau Business of the Year for 2010, 345-5555. Big enough to serve you, small enough to care. Every time one of my friends, one of the people who listen to this show, has Earhart come and bid on a project and then do their project, they always give me the same response. Couldn't believe how fast it was. Couldn't believe how courteous they were, how clean they cleaned up, and how they cleaned up. And that's the one thing that you'll find out if you do hire Earhart Roofing, is that the way that they treat their work site, it's very special, and why they were Better Business Bureau Business of the Year. The latest in technology, licensed, bonded, and insured. Give them a call over there at Earhart Roofing if you're looking for a roofing contractor who really can help you. When you think roofing, think Earhart, EARHART. 10 minutes before the top of the hour. I hope you get a chance to tune in to Tom Anderson on in the mornings. That guy is absolutely hilarious. Really, he's got this stream of consciousness thing, and he's just, he's had so many experiences in life, and he's a fun guy, and add to your morning drive. So definitely tune him in 6 to 9 a.m. Joe Miller is on just before me on KOAN. And this program here, Your Drive Home, plays out in the valley on KVNT and here in Anchorage on KOAN. So I've gone through many periods of time where I've lost weight, and I think I've convinced, this is a very odd commentary, but
I'll try to follow you.
That's very necessary. And I think I've confused my body so much, because here's how you know when you're losing weight: when you're cold all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been cold all day, but I don't think I've been, and I've been on another weight loss sort of, anyway, I don't know what to make of it. I have a feeling that my wife made me a tuna wrap. And had me eat that, and it had something to do with it. I get this wonderful face from Bonnie every time I say that.
Are you craving comfort?
No, I don't know.
Mac and cheese to warm your tummy?
Well, it's going to be interesting, because today I'm going out to do 40 Days for Life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
excellent.
we're doing the 7 o'clock hour today.
Good.
So a little bit of prayer, and I'm sure it'll be cold outside and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see. So I'll be cold for real then.
Yes.
At least I'll have
You'll be consistent.
Yeah, that'll work out. Well, I'm speaking here with Catherine Newmeyer, who's principal over at Holy Rosary Academy. My oldest 6 kids have gone there. I get the sense that more people are kind of following along with me, where for a number of years, and then the kids either got ornery, or it just got overburdened some, or we just had too many of them, or they just didn't fit in the homeschool for whatever reason, or they wanted sports, or we wanted a little bit of competition, a little bit of mixing of the sexes, whatever it was. So I have sent now my oldest 6 to Holy Rosary, the third one of which is going to graduate from there.
Makes me very emotional when I think about it. I taught her in 7th grade English.
Yep. Yeah.
Hard to believe.
They all, the thing about having kids, every single one of your kids is exactly the opposite of other one of your kids, which you would say that's not possible, but it's true.
Yes.
So, but the funny thing is they all fit. They fit in the school.
They complement each other.
How is that? So I don't understand how that is.
It's because we take them as they come to us, and we build on a foundation that they already have. Or if they're young enough, we lay a proper foundation. And it's been a real treat for us to have this opportunity to welcome part-time students to the school who have been homeschooling, but they'd like to make a transition, but they maybe don't want to make the whole transition. They want to visit 2 or 3 classes. And
some people start that way,
wonderful.
right? You got 5 or 10 or so now?
We do. We actually have 15 part-timers.
Is that right?
Really
and so
exciting.
What do they want out of the school? What's for the majority, or is everybody different?
I think
sports and stuff like that?
For many of them, it's that opportunity to begin to introduce them to an academic setting on the way to college, and have it be in a place where they know that the values and the virtues they're trying to foster in their children will still be complemented by what they're doing at home. And then I think for many of them, the intrigue has been our writing and our seminar program, because those
seminar meaning discussion, open discussion,
right?
Basically,
really mimicking
hand-to-hand combat with no hands.
Yep. And it's following Socrates was our guide, which was, as teachers, we ask questions, and students begin to realize they thought they knew something until they begin to answer questions. I mean, to this day, I'll say to the kids, okay, you just use power. What do you mean by power? And they'll start to answer like, oh, of course.
Well, everybody knows what.
Yeah.
Wait
and then next thing you know, they think, well, I'm not sure, and then, and that's really where you start. The beginning of wisdom is to recognize, I don't know this, but maybe I do know more than I thought I knew. And then as teachers, we help with questions. And then the students sort of work things out. And I think that that's totally engaging. It's just totally intellectually engaging to students. In fact, any student, Reagan, who for whom school was maybe not his favorite thing to think about each day. But there is not a seminar day that he was not able to be engaged by what we were talking about, because he was listening to his peers grapple with a problem, not just the teacher sort of lecturing and yammering away. And I think that's what makes it such a universally appealing program, and something where students at varying degrees of interest in school become engaged and can become engaged. And students who are self-motivated, they find that this just heightens what it is that they're doing. And it really does. We really let them participate in our drama, in our music program, community service. So they're really socializing with kids who have similar interests, similar values, similar goals, as far as college, being good citizens, and, in our case, being saints.
There you go. It sounds very familiar to me. I didn't like the idea of sending my kids off to college without, some understanding of, this is what male-female interaction is like.
The dynamic.
This is what competition feels like. That lump you have in your throat, the thrill, of
the sweaty palms,
the chase. You don't know exactly what you're going to say, but you really want to make sure this person knows that you're right. And I mean, all those things that you need to get over with. And it's funny because Mara's gone to a school and she says you can just totally spot people who've been homeschooled their entire life. And
so
just,
obvious. Yeah.
Yes. And then, and it's not that they turn out poorly or anything. It's just that so many of these experiences. So that's kind of what I was looking for when I partnered up with Holy Rosary. I couldn't be happier, by the way. It's funny how each one of my kids, they have vastly different capabilities and intellectual desires and, different parts of the school that they like, but they all get what they need out of the school.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's something that we work so hard. We know that we're educating the whole person, mind, body, spirit. We are not isolating anything and just saying, we're just going to teach this and we're going to exclude that. And because we can bring in religion and they can challenge and ask questions, things that relate to the soul, transcendent questions about God, because that gets to be a part of their education, there's not a huge gap and a void in what they have learned.
And a lot of the kids they're not Catholic. Some kids are not religious at all. Some are atheists.
But that intellectual exercise of being able to grasp and understand Catholicism, that intellectual ability to grasp what it is as opposed to whatever it is that you believe, that's phenomenal too. We should have that capacity to entertain a thought without necessarily, taking it in.
Catherine Newmeyer, she is a principal over at Holy Rosary Academy. I appreciate you coming in. And to me, this is just discussion about education in general, what I hope every person looks for their children, wherever they are. 2 minutes before the hour, make sure to tune in to Tom Anderson. He comes up 6 to 9 a.m. He is your ride to work. I am your ride home. This is the Glen Biegel Show. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Happy Monday, everybody. God bless.